Viewers, ladies and gentlemen, friends all, welcome to episode 12 of COVIDCASTJA. Many of you have been joining us on a weekly basis, and we just want to say thank you for going on this journey with us. And we are humbled to have been in a position to provide you some guidance and to also bring experts onto this show to help you through COVID. We are entering a time of a reopening of the economy, and a big part of that is that work from home. That particular order expired on Monday. We know that flights have started coming into Jamaica with Jamaican nationals, and come June 15th, the country will be opened. So there's lots of anxiety. I mean, children are at home. Parents who are not trained teachers have had to be dealing with homeschooling. Businesses have gone through some sometimes that were not thought of in January. Many of your small enterprises, the economy was doing very well, and many of you had done investments in your business or had launched out into your business. And we wanted to ensure that we had a space on this live every Thursday to discuss with you the various measures you could take to try and keep your business up and running, or if your business had to close, the various steps that you needed to take. And we know persons have lost their jobs, and many people are wondering, what do I do now? And this is just such an opportune time for us to talk about mental strength, to talk about stress and how we manage during this time. You know how Jamaicans, how we are as Jamaicans, we love to say we're tough, we are made of grit and all kinds of steel. And we don't like to talk about mental health. We don't want to talk about mental health issues. But this show, we're going to be breaking it down, and we have some experts with us. We are joined by Dr. Karen Carpenter. She's a licensed counseling psychologist in Jamaica and a Florida board certified clinical sexologist. She's also the acting head of the Institute for Gender and Development Studies and a lecturer at the University of the West Indies, Mona. Dr. Carpenter is an author and the host of Love and Sex on Facebook and Instagram, which airs on Tuesdays 9 to 10 p.m. So I'm sure you will be joining. We're also joined by Dr. Earl Wright, and Dr. Earl Wright joins us from one of our associate members, the Medical Association of Jamaica. He's a consultant psychiatrist and president of the Jamaica Psychiatric Association. He's also a member of the Medical Association of Jamaica and chairman of the Mental Health Technical Group of the Ministry of Health and Wellness. He's the past director of mental health and substance abuse services in the Ministry of Health, where during his tenure, he guided the process of integration of mental health with general healthcare services in the government health service and championed the promotion of mental health. And today, we are championing the promotion of mental health and mental strength. Yes, we've had to deal with the vagaries of COVID, and it is a difficult time for us, but together we will emerge on the other side of this. But we have to do this with the relevant mental muscles. Our minds and the way our mindset is developed and utilized at this time is going to make the difference. But I'm not the expert. I need some mental strength myself. Dr. Carpenter, Karen, welcome.
How are you?
To COVIDCASTJA.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you. Dr. Wright, you're also here with us. Welcome to COVIDCASTJA. So we are joined by two professionals, and we're going to be looking at building mental strength. We're going to look at the mind-body connection, the anxiety that comes with uncertainty, and managing stress in our daily lives. Karen, let's start with you. I know some of our viewers are asking if you're going to be giving us any advice in your sexologist role, but we'll get to that.
I'm sure that's another program.
Mental strength. When we use, and we have all kinds of quotes that go around on Instagram about mindfulness and mental strength and mental agility. What is mental strength really?
So mental strength is really about resilience and coping. So if you think of a membrane, if you have a tarpaulin, for instance, and you put it on your roof, if it is strong, when the water hits it and it's loaded with water, it doesn't tear apart, but it bounces back. And as the water dries, it stays firm and it's fine. So the brain, the mind, also has that ability to bounce back, to take some degree of pressure, and to again go back to a state of being calm and functioning well and productive. So mental strength is the ability to show resilience and coping.
So in terms of mental strength, nowadays we talk a lot more about the mind and about mental health, much more than we did in the past. Mm-hmm. And I think many more persons are willing to seek help, to go to a psychologist to talk about things. But there is a mind-body connection with mental health and actually your physical health.
Yes.
What is that connection?
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because even this morning I was speaking to someone who was having a physical problem and wondered if the problem came from his anxiety about work, about the COVID situation, about the layoffs, etc. And as we talked through the problem, we realized that actually his anxiety came about after he began to have the physical symptoms. So in the body, we have what we call somatization, or you hear a lot of talk about psychosomatic illnesses. And because the brain is the executive organ of the body, if you are having a problem coping and being resilient, you don't have that bounce back of that tarpaulin it just rains. So that's why I thought of, the rain and the water. If you don't have that bounce back, then you're going to experience it in your body perhaps. And some people recognize the physical symptoms of anxiety long before they can actually figure out what's on their mind, what's bothering them. So we look at those physical symptoms and we try to find out what was the first thing that triggered it. And I think we have to become a little bit mindful, as you said, of what's going on in the body and the mind. But the mind as executive agency can override that, it can cope with it, it can adjust for it, and it can repress it.
So I think this is a great time to bring in Dr. Wright. Dr. Wright, Dr. Carpenter just used such an amazing analogy with the tarpaulin, because I actually had a tarpaulin covering a swing, and apparently it did not have any mental strength because it blew and it tore. But also when rain, the water would seep through. So I changed it to this tarpaulin that when the water actually just rolls off of it, or it stays there and dry. So it's such an amazing analogy. And you deal with various professionals, Dr. Wright, who are now coming into you. And one of the first questions I want to ask is from a clinical and medical definition. Sometimes we say, oh, I feel anxious, I suffer from anxiety, or I'm stressed out. Is anxiety a result of stress, or are they two completely different clinical diagnoses?
No, they're integrally related. Let me go back. What happens when you deal with any stressor, any change in life? What you have is the fight or flight reaction. In other words, you either go into it and fight it, or you leave it and come back another day. And when you have the fight or flight reaction, what happens? Certain chemicals are secreted in the body. And you have the adrenaline, the cortisol that goes to the brain. And you have what you have is an increased reaction in the body. Your blood pressure goes up, your heart starts beating faster so you can pump blood throughout the body. You see better. Some people they start their dry throat, your voice change, the whole body changes so that you can react to whatever the stressor, whatever the problem, and in time you will come back to normal. After you have been in a stressor for a long period of time, you either adapt to it or you move to the stage that we call exhaustion. And then if you are moving to the stage that you're calling exhaustion, you haven't dealt with the stressor, then you are going to start developing symptoms. Because what's happening is the body is telling you, you have too much stress and the blood pressure is going to go up. You're going to eat more food. Some people eat more food and then you develop diabetes later on, or you develop high blood pressure, or you get a heart attack. Many people get heart attack. But the anxiety that you're talking about is when the body is not coping with the stressor. So the heart is beating fast. You have the sweating. You feel that you might die. You're not breathing properly. And you trigger a lot of the physical symptoms. So one of the things we always say, just as you take care of your physical health, on a daily basis, you need to take care of your mental health.
Yeah. So that's very interesting, because I know a lot of our viewers are saying to themselves, no, I have had for some people, they have considered it 3 of the worst months of their lives, because they have seen their very dreams. I mean, I felt a little emotional at the beginning of this episode, because we have seen many businesses where they are the dreams birthed from an owner, and these businesses have been closed and they're not quite certain how to get back on their feet. And this business owner is saying to themselves, no, I am anxious, I am stressed. Some people are saying they would love to be eating more under the anxiety and stress, but they don't have no food in the house to eat. Karen, when you are faced with a client that comes in this kind of COVID time and says to you, I know what my stressor is. And in fact, I think we know what most people's stressors are now. This COVID, what kind of techniques do you recommend to deal with now? Because Dr. Wright talked about it's not just the physical strength we're building, that mental strength. What kind of techniques do you suggest?
Yeah. Well, as Dr. Wright mentioned, we have the issue of whether or not we're going to flee. Some people run away, yes. Some people fight. They feel, okay, I'm going to try even harder. And there's yet another response, which is to freeze. Some people are mentally paralyzed by the stressors. It's so much for them to deal with that they simply can't think. And you'll say to them, well, what do you think your next step could be? And they're like, I just don't know. I don't know. So that's the person that's telling you all the time, I don't know how to get out of it. One of the things that we're interested in finding out when we have someone who is under stress, and as you say, some of the stresses are known and they're common to most of us, but how the person conceptualizes it, big word to say, what it means for them is very different from one person to the next. Some people have small children, some people have...
Important point though, Dr. Karen, because sometimes we say to ourselves, or someone will share an issue, and we say to ourselves, Aka, you know, no problem yet.
Yes, but for each person, it has a different meaning. And all of us have different responsibilities. So even in this issue of dealing with COVID, I've been saying over and over and over, yes, we are one country called Jamaica, but there are many Jamaicas, and there are individuals within the Jamaica coping with different issues, such as elderly parents, young children, whether you're self-employed or not, whether you have staff to pay, is there a payroll? Yes? Is there a mortgage? There are different things that people are dealing with, and also your physical circumstance. Can I go outside to that lovely green that we see Dr. Knight enjoying there? Yes, Dr. Wright has a beautiful green behind him. Some people don't have any escape, and they're in a physical situation where they're locked in with each other and they can't find a breather. So I think it's going to depend on what is causing it specifically for you. What does it mean for you that you have this stressor? And where can you get your resources? So then we start to talk about what resources you have at hand. Is it another member of the family? Is it the very staff who are depending on you getting your business back up? What are the resources you can call on? Yes, and that's a problem solving approach. It's a CBT approach, cognitive behavioral therapy. We help you to think through what you can do to achieve a therapeutic end, which is that healing, that mental wellness again, and at least have a strategy to move forward.
Okay. So, Dr. Wright, when we're talking about stress, and you mentioned this fight or flight.
Fight or flight, right?
Yeah, and Karen mentioned there's also freeze too.
Right.
One of the, is there a risk of, because we have some people that say, I just have to tough it out. We got through more than this. I have to go tough it out. Is there a risk in holding on to this stress?
Well, one of the things we know is that people who talk about their stressor deal with it more effectively than people that keep it on their chest. As a matter of fact, they live longer. The other people that they talk to might not live as long, but they live longer, right? But all of us, bar none, gonna go through difficult times. And it's going to be important that you do things during those difficult times that you come out at the upper end. And that's where managing your stress comes in. And what we're talking about is that on a daily basis, you should go out and exercise. Very simple. You don't have to do any serious running or go to the gym. A brisk walk for half an hour every day secretes what we call endorphins or serotonin, which is part of the chemicals that we use to treat depression with. You secrete that if you do physical exercise on an ongoing basis. So you also break up the stress, because if you hold on to anything for long enough, it's going to wear you down. If you put it down and come back, you're much better able to deal with it. So we're talking about that you plan your life, you set a structure that you say half an hour or more per day, I'm going to put in my exercise. And then the other part of it, having a structure to your life. You have to organize your life properly so that it's not all over the place. You say in the morning, I'm going to do this, 8 o'clock I do this, etc. So you don't have to, the decisions come earlier. The eating also, the healthy habits, eating habits, also important that you eat healthy. Because when you eat and exercise, you look better and feel better. And what also happens, if you exercise for a 6-month period, you're going to change your genes, and that's going to lift your mood. So that's also very important. Social interaction. As the talking to somebody. I always say there is no problem that you shouldn't talk to somebody about. Always talk to somebody. And the spiritual support, because one of the things about stress, that if you think you have enough resources to take care of the stressor, then you don't feel as stressed. So doing all these things is going to be helpful in getting you through difficult times.
Yeah, because in fact, and for viewers, if you're just joining us, we have with us Dr. Karen Carpenter and Dr. Earl Wright, and we are talking about building mental strength. Dr. Carpenter is a licensed counseling psychologist, and Dr. Earl Wright is a consultant psychiatrist and president of the Jamaica Psychiatric Association. In other words, they know what they're talking about. So we're here today talking about building mental health. If you have not received our weekly memo, please email us at sme at psoj.org. Much of the information that's being discussed by Dr. Carpenter and Dr. Wright is included in our weekly memo. You can also just drop us a line in the chat so that we can get the weekly memo off to you, because there's some very useful information. Now, Karen, Earl just talked about, exercising, talking to somebody, trying to relieve your mind of this stress and also getting structure. I've heard a couple of people say, let me tell you something, Rachel, I cannot even think straight at this time. Now, when you have someone come and say to you, I hear what you say about exercise. I know I tried to do a schedule yesterday, and then when I remembered how many bills I have to pay because I have lost my job, I cannot think straight. What am I supposed to do? I mean, I see people talking about practicing abundance, thinking gratitude. Can you tell us about some of these things, and are these things effective? Are these effective mechanisms?
Well, we can repress our concerns for a while. We can push them into a garbage bin and hope that the garbage bin will hold, but it will pop up because the volume of stress exceeds our capacity to hold it down. So I think more effective ways of dealing with the stressors that are real, that are there, bills are there, they're not going to disappear, is to decide to chop it up, if you like, to put it into smaller batches. Let's say you have 6 bills. Commit to yourself, make a promise to yourself to deal with 2 of those bills tomorrow, and 2 the day after, and 2 the day after, or space them out across the week. And deal with doesn't necessarily mean pay. You may literally not be able to pay it, but you can call the company, utility company, mortgage company, bank, or other, and make some arrangement to pay in a staggered fashion. And just that arrangement. So again, we're talking about strategies. We're talking about developing a plan. And if you feel that you're boxing and you can't think, you need to talk to somebody, as Dr. Wright says, because you're not going to solve it alone. Get help to begin to solve it. The other thing about the schedule, I'm a firm believer in a schedule, but a schedule doesn't have to be a straitjacket. A schedule, I've been saying to people during COVID that are working from home, do less, but do it well. Tackle 3 things instead of 5. When you're in the office, in the air conditioner, and you didn't have the children around or your partner or whatever, you could get 5 things done. So now choose the 3 top things that you need to do and focus in small batches of time to do those 3 things well. Do less, do it well. Get your exercise. Develop a schedule, and the children need a schedule. It's a fallacy. It's false that children like to just run up and down and do nothing all day long. All human beings need some kind of schedule, and children like order. So don't believe that if you have the children running wild, that they're having more fun than if you said, okay, guys, mommy, daddy, whoever is going to work for a couple of hours, here's what you're going to do while I'm working. Children enjoy that, and reward them for being quiet while you're working, and then learn some mindfulness techniques to help you focus a little bit while you're solving your problems.
Okay. Karen, as you mentioned mindfulness techniques, and I see Christopher Record actually says he's been doing a 5K walk almost every day. So that's all right. He's actually getting those endorphins up and running. Yes. Doing well. Javar is asking, how effective do you think meditations and affirmations are to mental health? I see you, Doctor, not in Dr. Wright. So what are your views?
Meditation is extremely important. And if you can do 30 minutes meditation, if you can do it twice a day, it's even better. But what meditation does is rest your brain, give your brain a rest. It's the same thing as repressing or putting the problem aside for a while. You become involved in the present moment. Yes. So meditation helps you to deal with any stressor. And also, if you can visualize the problem, and then you might find different ways of dealing with it. And another thing that needs to be done is reframing. There is no problem that you can't find something positive from or learn something from, but you have to look for it. Very, very important. But meditation is extremely important. If you can do meditation, it relieves stress tremendously.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, Dr. Wright, because I'm sure some of our viewers are saying, I didn't think Dr. Wright would have said anything about meditation. I thought he would be giving me medication.
Medication.
But let me deal with that, because that's important. If you haven't been able to manage your stress, because one of the things that stress does, if you are susceptible to anxiety disorders, if you are susceptible to major depressive disorder, then it's gonna precipitate it. And if it's precipitated and we make the diagnosis, then we can decide whether we deal with it by cognitive therapy, as Dr. Carpenter talked about, or we use cognitive therapy and medication. Mm-hmm. Because major depression is a medical illness, just like diabetes is a medical illness. What has happened with major depression, and what you're talking about, is that you can't sleep for 2 weeks or more. You go to bed at 9 o'clock and you're up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, or you go to bed 10 o'clock and by 2 o'clock you're up and can't go back to sleep. You're not enjoying life anymore. You can't see a future. Your appetite has changed. You're not eating as much, or you're eating too much and putting on too much weight. And your concentration, you can't concentrate. The television that you used to watch, you're not watching it anymore. And when people come look for you, you don't want to see them. You tell them, I'm not at home. And then it goes to your life, not her. If you have many of those symptoms, then we're talking about a clinical condition that it's treated 3 ways. 1, with cognitive psychotherapy. 2, medication. And the third one, exercise. So it's important to make exercise, because when you exercise, you release the same chemicals that's going to be in the medication at a different level. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So it's important.
At this time of year, under normal circumstances, people would have been filling the gyms because they're working on their summer bodies. Mm-hmm. And we tend to do it as just we're trying to fit into a dress, or we're trying to go to an event. But it is that constancy in our exercise, that consistency in our exercise program, that is also treating our mental health. Mm-hmm. You have to join Chris. I'm going to join you for the 5K walk, you hear? So I'm also seeing a question here, and thank you, our viewers. We love to have your questions, and we have 2 dynamic experts here. I see Romeo Stewart. Romeo is saying, do men and women approach stress differently? Karen, do men and women approach stress differently?
Well, let me say that human beings approach stress differently. Yes? And I think we sometimes ignore or may not be aware of the fact that our personality type is going to affect the way we approach stress, not whether we're male or female. Our stressors may be different as men and women based on our social responsibilities. If you have care of the children, if you have to bring in the bacon, if you're going to fry the bacon, then our stressors may be different. But human beings have different personality types, and therefore deal with stress in different ways according to their personality types.
Okay. What is interesting too is, as persons at the beginning of COVID, people were anxious about having to work from home. Having gotten used to working from home, many persons are anxious about leaving home and going back into the workplace. So, Dr. Wright, from a occupational health standpoint, as managers, as business leaders are opening the doors for employees to come back in, what do they need to be aware of with some of the stress and anxiety that may be in persons' mind, especially those who have young children who are not in school, what kind of, what do they need to be bearing in mind at this time?
But let me go back. Any change, you're going to have stress, because what happens when an individual stays home for a while, they get adjusted to that. You go back to, it becomes a norm for them. Now going out again, and you're going out now into a situation where you're not sure what's going to happen with COVID. You're not sure if there's going to be a vaccine. You're not sure if there's going to be a treatment, and you're not sure if you are going to be exposed to it in getting to work or at work. Therefore, there's a normal anxiety that's expected with this change. It's going to be important that managers empathize. Try to understand what is going on with their worker. Try to put themselves in the worker's situation and empathize and try to work with them so that they can continue to be productive or more productive. And the other thing that managers need to do is to be aware of themselves, be aware of their stress level. How am I doing with my stress level? Because when your stress level is high, how you deal with other people is going to be different from when your stress level is low. You become more irritable, you talk differently. The decisions that you make when you're on normal times are going to be different. So the support services should be at work. I think that many organizations now are forming groups that they can do support in the work situation. And I always finish with having the gym at the workplace that you can go and exercise when you finish the work. Make it accessible.
So we have a question here from Stephanie Daly. What advice do you have for dealing with burnout? And how can we get the support we need from family and our boss for building our mental health? That's two very good questions. Let's deal with burnout first. And I was speaking to a young mother recently, and she said that based on the type of work that she does, working from home, she did not actually have more work to do, but yet she felt completely burnt out to go back. She said she needed a vacation, but it's just that the children will still be there and she needed to get rid of them. So this concept of burnout, I think people assume that burnout only comes when you are doing a lot of desk work, that you have a lot of deadlines to meet. But burnout can come in many different forms.
Yes.
Karen, what is your experience?
Yeah, I'm thinking about what Dr. Wright said earlier about exhaustion. Getting to the point of exhaustion, because burnout is a kind of, I can't cope anymore. I think we have had more instances of burnout throughout these 2 months of work from home. And I think the burnout happens more frequently. I don't know if it's as overwhelming at each juncture, but we're certainly feeling it more frequently and smaller intervals. And that simply is, I've had enough of this, whatever this is. And again, we need a change. We certainly need that exercise. And I know when it's burnout point, you don't feel you want to exercise. And you may want to have a little staycation. If you're a CNN watcher, you'll notice that CNN has a 60-second vacation on the television screen when they show you some other part of the world. You might want to just go and look at something that doesn't use your brain in the same way. Go look at a magazine. So I love stand-up breaks. Yes, I love stand-up breaks, because just as when you're driving, you should stop every hour, hour and a half, get out of the vehicle, stay alert, stretch your back, stretch your spine. I absolutely love, after each activity that you've completed, stand up, walk around the room, walk around the house, walk around the apartment, so that your brain moves from one level to the next, and it can then focus again. But this consistent sitting is not healthy. It's not healthy at all.
One of the things, though, is that adding something pleasurable to your life on a daily basis.
Reward yourself.
Reward yourself. You should do something that you enjoy, whether it's gardening, whether it's play perfume, having a nice long bath, whatever your thing is. But you should consciously make an effort to add something pleasurable to your life on a regular basis.
And that's very interesting, Doctor, because I actually want to bring you in now where the family and the work support is concerned, because there are some persons who do not have that level of family support. They may live on their own, the family lives overseas. They had enough anxiety not even being with their work family. They have anxiety going back. Where you don't have that almost tribal support, what coping mechanisms have you been actually telling your patients? How do you cope?
The telephone, taking up the telephone and talking to your people. You don't have to see them. It's preferable to see them. But you have WhatsApp video now. So you can actually use WhatsApp video and see your family or see somebody who is not near you, or you can't. You have to be physically distant from. And in Jamaica, we have a strong church spirituality, and the church is also a very important part of our support system. And if you can't find anybody, you can sit down and write down your problems. You don't have to just write it down and for yourself, and you get rid of some of the emotions attached to the problem that you are talking about. But being in social contact in whatever way you can is going to be important. Connecting to somebody, whether it's your family, church, or the men tend to have a different type of socialization. They go to the bar. I don't recommend it because alcohol itself is a depressant and causes problems. And then the men in the bar don't talk about the problems actually. They talk about everything else. But you should talk about the problems to somebody or the other. Share with them.
Sharing. I'm seeing Lisa Reed here. Lisa says, I'm concerned about many things, but the most prominent anxiety is sending my child back to daycare. That's a very real anxiety for parents. So there is there are some parents, and for high school students, some went back to school. Some are going back next week. And I have a couple of nieces and nephews that even the teenagers are themselves a bit anxious about leaving the home. So for a parent who has a child heading back out, how do they manage that anxiety? I saw a lady on the television that she went to the school with her child to walk through the process to ensure that she was satisfied with it. What are the mechanisms that parents can use to deal with that anxiety?
Yeah. Well, I've been thinking about that, not just in terms of parents, but our own offices came back out when we opened back, when the work at home order was no longer there. Once it was lifted, I thought about, well, what do we need to do to make the staff more comfortable? Some offices are staggering, and where they're able to stagger who can be in the office at what time, how many people are in the office, how proximate, how close the other person is, and therefore which desks are occupied and which are not. But I also thought that one of the things that we may need to do, because I've been hearing this talk about, oh, it's coming to summer now and it's getting warm, so the COVID will die out. And the first time I heard it, I thought, no, this is dangerous. So I invested in packs of disposable masks and small containers of sanitizers. And we have those at the front in the office. So if you come into the office and you don't have a mask, which you can't actually do in our office because you're checked at the door, but should you imagine that you could come in without the mask, it helps staff in the office to feel we have a recourse. We have something we can do. So even mentally, it's making the staff feel that they're more in control of the situation, because they know before the person even gets to their desk, that person has access to a disposable mask and they have some sanitizer. Yeah. So I would, even for parents with their teenagers who've gone out, this week and next week, if you can spare, and they're not expensive, the pack of 10 or 12 is not expensive. If you can spare an extra mask for that child to take with them, so that if somebody's going to be in close proximity, they can ask them to wear it. I've been telling people over and over, you're not wearing the mask for yourself. I know that you may not want to wear it, but please wear it for me. Yes? Because what you're doing is you're helping me to stay healthy. And it's amazing how people have responded to that. I've not had one person refuse to wear a mask, because when I put it in the picture for them that, look, I understand you're bulletproof and you're Batman and Robin and Catwoman. I am not. So, yeah, I'm not asking you to do it for yourself, but I would really want you to do it for me, because I have health complaints that would make it quite dangerous for me to get it. Simple.
So I'm going to share with you now, because we have a poll. We actually have 2 polls, and the results are in. One poll: what are you most concerned about at this time? And 34% of our respondents said my health. 33% said losing my job. 33% said Jamaica's economy, and 0% said opening of Jamaica's borders. We have a second poll. How do you cope with stress? 23% said meditation. 23% said spiritual support. 46% said talking with friends and family. And Dr. Wright, only 8% said exercise. But after we're going to have people getting up in the morning, because I think one of the things that has really struck me today is that both of you are clinical professionals, and there is a blend of this physical activity to build your mental strength and releasing those hormones. And much of your advice has been practical. Dr. Wright mentioned meditation, writing down your problems. And Dr. Carpenter, you just mentioned an awareness of what your anxiety is, which it may be the actual COVID. So walk with a mask for somebody, because we are protecting each other. So there's some very practical ways. Talking to a friend. Who would have thought it? You know, sometimes when you see these things coming around, you say talking to somebody, but I don't know the level of my stress. But there's also the spiritual side that for some of us, we have to actually tap into that spiritual side at this time. And then Dr. Wright, you mentioned that treatment is cognitive. It's cognitive with medication. And very importantly, it always includes, make sure you're doing some exercise. We're actually getting some interesting questions from our viewers. I see Shellyan saying, what approach can be taken to get support for someone who recognizes they have mental issues but refuses to accept that he or she? So for someone who you recognize has mental issues, but that person refuses to get help. Dr. Wright?
That is always a problem, because one of the things with psychiatry, psychology, and psychotherapy is that the individual needs to want help. But what you can do, if they are having symptoms, you try to tell them about what are the symptoms they are having, how you see it, that you want to help them. And I always come back to, I start with the physician. That is just like any other physical, it's a brain problem. So if you are not acting right, just like how you treat your other disorders, your diabetes, your hypertension, you go and get help. And also you tell them that talking to somebody, just talking it out might also be helpful, but it's extremely difficult, and it takes a lot of time to get an individual that with a mental health problem, especially schizophrenia, because one of the things about schizophrenia, it is not painful to them. a lot of times. They might get into problems, but they are not feeling pain. They project the problem out. With depression, the depression is painful to the individual, so they want to get less depressed. So it's really trying to convince the individual to get some help by whatever way possible.
Sorry, Rochelle, I might add as well that there is a Department of Community Health and Psychiatry at the university, and there are community health workers in psychiatry who can make a visit depending. Dr. Wright just mentioned schizophrenia. If the person is diagnosed, if the person has already been to a hospital, it is possible to get a community psychiatric nurse to visit. So it depends on the severity of the problem that the family member is coping with. But reach out to the hospital nearest to you, ask about their psychiatry services and where you can get a community nurse to visit.
Okay, because I'm actually seeing a question here from Oleandre, I hope I'm pronouncing your name, Oleandre Giovanni, who says, how has Jamaica evolved over the years when it comes to dealing with and talking about mental health? That's all right. Have we evolved?
Yes,
I just had a conversation about 2 days ago with a lady that said, it's
right. We have done pretty well, I think. There was a time when you talk about mental health, all people spoke to you about was psychosis and mad people and schizophrenia. That has changed quite a bit. People recognize now anxiety, depression. And if you notice, in the COVID pandemic, what you're seeing is people focusing on mental health. How are we going to, like a program like this, you are focusing on how are we going to cope with the COVID pandemic? So there's been a big shift in how people think of mental health. And people again are recognizing that just like diabetes is a disorder of the pancreas, mental problems, your behavior is a problem with the brain. And just like how diabetes can be treated the same way you treat diabetes by reducing the intake of all the sugars, etc., and you get your diabetes, the same thing. And you exercise also, same thing you do with depression. You reduce the stress level by psychotherapy, cognitive psychotherapy, and you, if it's severe, you add medication, which is similar to the insulin. So it's a recognition that this is a medical problem with social implications and that it has to be treated effectively.
Yes, because I think one of the things, COVID is truly the great equalizer. Across the world, we're all dealing with it. And I think some persons who did not have the kind of empathy, the various forms of mental health issues. We all recognize that anxiety is real for all of us. Stress, some of us never knew. We heard people talk about anxiety attack and panic attack, and we're saying, what are you talking about? And we felt it. So I think we are a lot more open now to the discussion of mental health, and mental health issues is not a function of that you're fenke or you're weak-minded, but any one of us are susceptible to mental health issues in the same way there is diabetes, high blood pressure, and it's how we treat it.
I tell you what,
so I'm also seeing here what
1 in 5 people will have depression at the present time. And women are more susceptible to depression, not because they are weaker, but because they have hormonal changes on a regular basis. So it's mental illnesses are strictly unrelated to your physical health and causes physical problems.
And I'm seeing here Matthew Robotham says, what symptoms should I look out for to know I need to build my mental health? And Karen, I'm going to hand this question to you. And also I want, because there's some people who may be wondering, am I at a stage, or what stage should I be at to know that I need professional help, that this is more than just a conversation with my good friend?
Okay, so I think there are degrees, and all of us function at different optimal levels, right? So some of us have great focus, we have great concentration, we're very productive, we can get through lots of stuff. And all of us exist on some continuum of that functioning. You know what your optimal level of functioning is. You know when you're functioning at your best. So if you imagine that under the conditions that we're in right now, you may be functioning perhaps, let's say 10%, 15, 20% less than before. You don't have ideal conditions. You're not in an office isolated where you can just think about the problem, and give yourself a little wiggle room. Don't expect the same functioning right now as you did when everything was to your liking or optimal level. But when you see that slipping below the point where you're being productive in whatever way, it could be cooking and you forget to leave, you left the fire on, you leave the fridge door open, you start something and your mind flits to something else. Again, mindfulness.
Yeah.
When you see your focus, concentration, mindfulness slipping, and that slippage is causing you distress, you go, oh my goodness, I left the fire on again. Oh Lord, how come I leave the pipe on? When you're noticing that these things are causing you distress, you really ought to reach out to somebody, even if that professional is going to say to you, I think what you're experiencing is normal given the circumstances, because the key part of that conversation is an interview is a conversation with a purpose. A clinical session is a conversation with a purpose. The key part of that conversation is strategies, because you and that professional will work through some sensible strategies that work in your individual case. It may not work for someone else, but it will certainly help to relieve the pressure for yourself. And that's why I say when you see the slippage below 10, 15%, begin to pay attention.
Yes. And Dr. Wright, I'm going to give you the last word. Thank you for that, Karen, because that is a key that I know several people want to understand. At what point do I need professional help? And very importantly, there is no shame in seeking professional help. In fact, you're in a worse position if you are not trying to get that professional help when you need it. Dr. Wright, any closing words that you want to leave with our viewers?
Let me add, when you can't sleep, because a lot of people, when they can't sleep, they take it as normal for a long time. And after you can't sleep for a while, you develop what we call sleep deprivation. And therefore, you go to the office and you can't concentrate. So sleeping and changing appetite is going to be important. You have a lot of people that eat lots of food because of their stress level, and they become overweight, and then that creates all sorts of problems. So what we're talking about, if you can't sleep, if you can't concentrate, if you are not managing well, you're not enjoying life, and you feel sad, then you need to go and get some help. And help is always available.
Yes.
Thank you. Because I think people go, sorry, Karen, you were saying, you're making a point?
I'm agreeing with what Dr. Wright is saying, but I also want to add just one little word. We're thinking more about wellness. Yes? So not just mental health. It's no longer the Ministry of Health, but the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And I think that's a significant change in the way we're seeing mental health. It's not just about mental health or ill health. It's about maintaining wellness, keeping the engine running smoothly.
Yes, because it as persons are going back in the workplace, I know several managers and business owners, in hearing about anxiety and stress, having to deal with their own, but there are also mechanisms in not just ensuring your building is sanitized and there is spacing in the desk, but that you're also providing some necessary mental health support systems to help your colleagues through this time. Because the thing with COVID, it is the equalizer. We are all feeling something. So it's how we work together and put the systems in place. And let me tell you, viewers, if you are just joining us, you haven't missed, because it is going to be right here on our Facebook page, an interview with Dr. Karen Carpenter, who is a licensed counseling psychologist, and Dr. Earl Wright, who is a consultant psychiatrist. And they gave us, I'm going to wrap up with some of the points, and you would be surprised with some of the coping mechanisms. Chief among them, exercise. A little walk outside. Dr. Wright mentioned doing your thing, whether it be gardening, taking a long bath, walking outside in the grass, and airing out yourself. And we have to recognize when we are not sleeping. Sometimes some of us think that it's okay to be going 2-3 weeks without adequate sleep. That is one of the signs that we may need some help. Our appetite has changed, how we are relating to others. And we also have to be looking at the change in others. So one of the things with COVID that we've said, it is a time of compassion. It's a time of collaboration. It's a time of communication. And both our experts said, talk to somebody, talk about it. In fact, Dr. Wright said, if you don't have anybody to talk to, write it down. So we want to thank both of you, Dr. Karen Carpenter and Dr. Earl Wright, for taking some time to share with our viewers today. And we look forward to having you again on our program. Thank you very much. So viewers,
Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you so much. If you are just joining us and you are wondering, where do I get this information? It was such valuable information, I didn't get to write everything down. Please subscribe to our weekly memo at sme@psoj.org. And you're saying to yourself, no, I want to be a part of this PSOJ because I see that there's some valuable membership benefits, because persons who are not members, we are actually sharing with our community ways to get business through COVID. We've made recommendations for how you deal with your bank, how you restructure your business, how you pivot, if pivoting is a mechanism that you can utilize. And you may be wondering, can I get a little more information on PSOJ? And today we're joined by a gentleman, Chris Record. He's going to join us shortly. But before he joins us, I want to just do a bit of a recap on building mental strength. Now, one of the things Dr. Carpenter mentioned, that mental strength is like having a strong tarpaulin that when water drops on it, it does not seep through or tear it. It will rest there and it will run off or it will dry. So building mental strength, we have to understand first what it is. So it is a capacity of an individual to deal effectively with stressors, and stressors can come in the form of anxiety. There is a mind and body connection, and that's something for us to bear strongly in mind, because the mind is the executive agency that helps the body to cope well or poorly. Hence, we need to build our mental muscles to be in good mental health in order to take care of our physical self. So, what are some of the things that we can do to build our mental strength? Practice mindfulness. Being present, that's a part of mindfulness. Focus on gratitude and abundance. What are the things in your life that you can be grateful for? Because a part of dealing with the stressors and the anxiety is backing away from them to look at the other things, because sometimes we focus so much on these stressors and anxiety that they overwhelm us. Be aware of the bad habits that keep you back. So if you have a bad habit like me, like signing up to do some exercise and you don't, but rather you go and you eat a nice piece of cake and you think that makes you feel better, then you start feeling guilty. Be aware of your bad habits and utilize it as a time now to deal with some of the bad habits. They say it takes 21 days to change a habit. Exercise 30 minutes a day. Dancing or walks with friends can be fun. I remember dancing, even though the entertainment industry, no party is not going on. You can turn up that music in your house and dance. Take a walk, take a long bath, have a call with a friend, do a Zoom call with your family. Take a mental break. Music, sports, social gatherings with those that you love. We know that much sporting events aren't going on right now, but there are so many ways to take mental breaks. Some of us have wanted to read a book for a long while. We've put it on a list to say, I'm going to read this book. Take some time, read a book. What are some of the other things that we can do? Seek spiritual and community support. And one of the amazing and bounteous things about living in Jamaica is that certainly where spiritual community is concerned, we have every denomination church right here. So you are able to find a spiritual community that you can seek support. Talk about the things that create stress in order to let them go, because we have to face the things, Dr. Wright said you have to face the stressors so that you know how to deal with them. Positivity, visualization, and what a thing. It was amazing to me that both Dr. Wright and Dr. Carpenter talked about seeing yourself on the other side. So ways to change your mindset. Remember, I said the mindset is mind is the executive agency of the body. You have to see yourself on the other side of COVID. Convert your vision into goals and your goals into specific activities and actions, moving away from the paralysis. Remember, when the stressors come on, we can either fight, flight, run away, or many of us go into a paralysis. It's time for us to move away from the paralysis. And even where we have businesses that right now the businesses are going through, we're wondering how the bills are going to be paid. Dr. Carpenter said, deal with only 2 bills a day. And it may not be that you're able to pay them, but you're able to call that debtor to say, this is how I'm going to work through it. Or even to be working out what kind of possible payment plan. Deal with it a piece at a time. An elephant can only be eaten one bite at a time. And very importantly, if you are not coping, if you find you're not sleeping, you're not eating well, or you're eating too much, you're not able to function, to communicate, seek professional help. Now is not the time for us to go back to those days where we were not willing to talk about mental health. Our minds are the executive agency of our bodies. So the way our mindset, the way our minds are operating, it affects everything about our bodies. Let's take care of our minds. There is no shame in seeking help. In fact, it shows a certain level of awareness of self and a willingness to deal with an issue when you seek help. So you're wondering, I need to join the PSOJ. Christopher Record is joining us from the PSOJ. Christopher Record is a long-standing PSOJ member who is also who heads up the PSOJ membership initiatives. So we're going to be joined by Christopher Record right now. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hi, Rochelle. Doing great. Fantastic. See you.
You're supposed to, because your endorphins and your serotonin and all of that, because I always see you posting pictures of your 5K walks and that you're always on the move. Do you find that that has made a difference in even how you operate in business?
Rochelle, it's one of the main reasons why I started back my exercise routine. The level of pressure and stress that has come on us since March, even before March, just you saw what's going on in the world. Then all of a sudden, March 10th, we had our own announcement. There, I can't tell you a lie. There was some level of anxiety that came over me. You look at a business, you're in charge of a company, you have staff of 45. You have to. It's a lot of things that start to come in your mind. And I said to myself, I'm not going to waste this crisis. I am going to wheel and come again. And I did. I upgraded my exercise routine. I started try to do a 5K every day. So far, I'm never knock on wood, I've lost about 15 pounds since the COVID, and I just decided that I have to try to stay mentally and physically healthy. As the doctor said a while ago, it's all about wellness.
It's all about wellness. And as businesses are considering some next steps, one of the things we have been encouraging is that businesses seek active membership in industry associations. One of the premier industry associations in the Caribbean is the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica. And the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica actually puts on this COVIDcast. And Chris is the chairman of the membership committee.
Correct.
Is that correct? That's correct, Chris. So,
Yes,
Chris,
so-
tell me, you have been
Right.
a member of the PSOJ for quite some time.
Yes.
Because some persons, as they look, they're like, PSOJ, I don't know. I mean, am I worthy? Is my business big enough for this? Can I join as an individual? Why should I join? Can you tell us a little bit about the experience you have had in joining the PSOJ so we can understand a member's journey?
Sure, Rochelle. So, interesting question. I joined as an individual member. I'm still an individual member of the PSOJ. And why? I had spent some time living and working overseas, came back to Jamaica, might have been 2003, 2004. And, as you come back, you get back in touch with all your friends, and you kind of realize that there is this rut that everyone is still in, the veranda, politicians who have all the solutions for Jamaica, but they're sitting down there complaining about them. You meet them for drinks every Friday and talking about the same thing. And at some point in time, I said to myself, you know what? I'm not going to try to make a change that way, because that doesn't work. How can I make this change? And I looked around at the various organizations and made a choice. And at the time, because I couldn't afford to do it the other ways, I decided to join as an individual member. And I have, in between companies, it has worked well, because, when you're a corporate member and you leave, that membership stays with that company. And so I've been very lucky that I made a choice to join as a individual member. And as a result of that, many of the other associations that I've either joined or formed, I have encouraged them to become members. So you end up in a situation where you have the ability to influence policy, to bring your ideas and views from not only your company, but your industry, because you're dressing back and looking at the holistic needs of the country, holistic needs of the industry that you're in, to say, how can this better our country for, meeting Vision 2030? How can this be that place that I want to? Well, I did. I made a choice to move back, raise a family, start a business. Yes, I've tried starting 2 or 3 or 4, and, do what needs to be done to take them to the next level. And so that was my decision. No, I mean, the benefits of membership are many. And I had worked with a team to put together a number of various booklets, because it's a continuous question that comes up, Rochelle. People always wonder, exactly just said a while ago, why should I join? Am I big enough? One of the key benefits, or one of the key ways to leverage your membership, is to becoming involved in the committees that are there. And there are a number of committees that are that are in the PSOJ. And some of these include the membership committee, which was just mentioned a while ago, that I chaired that one. Other committees include economic policy, there's energy, environment, and so some of the names continue to change. There's a HR related one, gender equality, listed companies, national security, corporate governance. So there's a range of areas that folks can make contributions. Mm-hmm. And so I always encourage people to say, look, if you're asking this question and you're not sure and it's for your business, I said join as an individual member first, or check out if the association that you're a member of is a member of the PSOJ. Because if they are, then just put up your hand and ask them, can I go this month or in the next couple of meetings and represent the association so I can get a feel as to what goes on? And those are some of the things that I've encouraged people to do.
So, Chris, as persons are thinking about membership, because one of the things we say is that you can't get a lot of things changed if you're not at the table.
Correct.
So, as a small business, one of the things we're encouraging, get your business formalized, but also ensure that you are at the table for the decision making, and the PSOJ gives you that kind of seat at the table. Chris mentioned the various committees. Now, when somebody's thinking right now and they're wondering, okay, is this a good spend? And I am endorsing that this is a valuable spend and not as an expense. I want you to see this as an investment for the business. Because Chris, talk to us about some of the PSOJ membership benefits.
So the membership benefits are, I will focus on about 3 or 4, and these 3 or 4 I think are the main ones. So you have a graphic on the screen, and the number one there, the number one that's listed here is advocacy. And a number of people, they see what's going on out there with the PSOJ, especially now. I mean, even this COVID cast that your team has put on, it has been valuable information every week that you guys do it. I mean, tons and tons of great goodness coming out of it. And I point out various episodes to folks and say, just go there and look and see just the value of that information that you're getting. It's free training, right? And so the beauty is that they say, oh, well, I don't have to be a member to get that. I say, but if you're getting this for free, imagine what else you can get when you become a member, because there are other things that happen that members are invited to that you don't see. It's not going to be out there on Facebook or out there on Instagram. Only sent to the membership list. Because one of the big things for any of us who in sales and read any of these motivation books or business development books, one of the things you always learn is that show me your network and I'll tell you what your net worth will be, right? So your network will help to determine your net worth. So a key thing is networking. And no, it's not the networking where you come to the meeting or come to the membership mingle and you come with 100 cards and just walk and just issue out business cards, like you're playing a game. No, it's meaningful discussions. It's meaningful conversations with other persons that you may be able to help. One of the things that one of my coaches tell me, Chris, just keep delivering value first. Just keep delivering value. Just don't stop. Just always help, always offer to help. And the universe will turn it back on you in tenfold in terms of goodness. So advocacy is 1, networking I mentioned is 2, and I mentioned a little bit about research. I mean, as I said, this format that we're delivering, all this content here, is one such. The training, there's a fair amount of training that happens, and folks are invited to come for different trainings. But remember, the PSOJ is like Jamaica's umbrella organization for a number of other organizations. So almost all of those organizations, when they have their trainings, they come to the PSOJ, and we either physically, they may even have the trainings there, or we just partner with them to help guide them as to what trainings are needed, what our members are asking us for, and then delivering those trainings. Yes. As I said, some things are members only. So, for example, one of the things that are members only invitation is our leadership breakfast, or our chairman's breakfast. It goes by different names depending on who's the president. They may change the name, right? Yeah. I've been around for a while now, and the name has changed a few times. So there's a president's forum or whatever. So the fact of the matter is that specific activity is a members only. You go in that room, you go for a breakfast. You don't have to pay anything. Yeah. PSOJ buys your breakfast, and you sit there and you get a meaningful discussion with an industry leader that comes and delivers some tremendous value that you'll only hear first there, and you'll be amongst a team of people that are getting that information first. Then we're also, so one of the things that the membership committee had created maybe about 9-10 years ago is a mentorship, let's call it a mentorship dinner. We used to call it mentoring emerging entrepreneurial leaders, short word MELS. When it was first formed, I think we evolved it to, I think it was knowledge or notes or a conversation with the C-suite, something around that. But the entire concept of it is simply this. We recognize that networking and access certain level of leadership in this country is hard for many. And so what we do is say, well, okay, if we can bring the captains of industry, the decision makers, the president and CEOs as chairman of Jamaica's largest companies to sit at a table with 10, 15 folks, right? 5 or 10 members and maybe 4 or 5 interested members, persons interested to become members, and just sit down and have a heart-to-heart conversation as to how did that business leader get to that level of success? we have done, and I need to count how many, we have done, it's about 9 years now. We do anywhere between 12 to 6 per year. We've been doing that for that time. And let me tell you, a surprising result is the business leaders themselves coming away saying, I learned so much from these
So much.
So with
Yes.
these people in the room, Jamaica is only going this way, right? And so it is, so these are the things: access to leadership, access to knowledge, access to peers that are having the same struggle as you. Anybody who does a lot of reading, I for one read too much sometimes. Anyone who has read like Napoleon Hill or any of these, Dale Carnegie, any of these foundational business advice books, they always talk about a mastermind group, a group of like-minded folks who are able to give you advice and help you to achieve your goals. And that's kind of some of the stuff that you get when you join the organization, and more importantly, start to get involved. I know the complaints. Rochelle, I've heard the complaints. There are folks out there that, boy, I join, I don't get nothing from it. And I said, did you put up your hand at all for any committees? Did you choose to come to attend these many events that you get invited to? So you want us to kind of get involved, you know what I mean?
Because the thing too is that I think sometimes we as business people, we don't recognize that it's not just about an advertisement in the paper or somebody knows where your business is. When you are really going to expand and move to the next level, you have to ask yourself, who do I need to be associated with and what entities do I need to be associated with? Chris mentioned there are different membership tiers you can join as an individual. So you as a SMADI, as your own person, can join. You can join as a part of an association. So associations are also members. And then we have the businesses that are members in different tiers: micro businesses, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and larger businesses. And there is advocacy, there's networking, there's investment opportunity, there's the research, and you can certainly see from this program, because there's a large body of work. And again, if you have not been getting our memo and you want to see the quality of the research work, please email us at sme@psoj.org and subscribe to our weekly memo. The promotion and the visibility, the training, the access to the training. And can you imagine that the level of work that is put into this program that is available to all? Can you imagine what is available to you as a member? There's another project, the Access to Finance, which is a project geared at access to finance and improving access to finance to small and medium enterprises, looking at things like tiered KYC, simplification of forms to access loans and open accounts. Very importantly, training and formalization of your business. So the PSOJ looks holistically at growing your business, and you don't have to be at a particular size to join. In fact, join from a small and grow with the association. As Chris mentioned, you can become a member of, when people join something and then say, but nothing no happen, but you never gave anything to it. Because the thing is that when you are able to sit at that table and invest in that conversation with your ideas, sometimes you are surprised that some of your biggest suppliers will come from a conversation around a table with the chairman of a board. So we are encouraging you that as you even look at the restructuring of your business, that you include in it joining the PSOJ, joining an association to ensure that you are at the table. You can go to the PSOJ website so that you can get information, and please just start filling out the form right away. Chris, thank you so much. And Chris joined as an individual member, and I think it is actually quite amazing that he joined as an individual member and he reached a big chairman of membership committee.
The committee that we all formed, since Keith became president, is the Innovation and Digital Transformation Committee. Because again, we are in the 21st century. We are heading digital, and of course, we have seen everything that has happened under this COVID situation, and we realize that digital and innovation. COVID-19 has been the biggest digital transformation catalyst that as humankind has ever seen all at once, right? And so with, work from home and all of that. So this committee is actually looking at things that we believe that can help the country become a digital society. And what are these things and how can you weigh in on it? The amount of people that have reached out to me, Chris, I want to be on that committee. I'm like, hold on. I remember the PSOJ, right? So that's it. People want to get involved and solve certain things, but I said, you have to kind of, come to the table the right way,
And this is actually a real investment in growing your business, growing its visibility, growing the access, the network of this business. So we are encouraging you. And Chris Record, he is very active online. So you can ask him all manner of questions. How can people reach out to you, Chris, when they want to know, like, is it because you named Chris Record that you could have joined as an individual and reached that far? People want to reach out to you and ask you how it really go. How can they find you?
Quite easy. Let me tell you how it really go. How it really go is that you get involved, you look around and say, where is the need? Where is the need right here? And then you say, oh, you need help in this area? Let me see if I can help. With my exercise group this morning, I do a 5K every day, right? I said to them, guys, I'm a just-in-time learner. If all of a sudden I realize that there's this need for something that I don't understand how to do it, and my wife laughs at me and my friend laughs at me, I run to get a book or 2 or 3 and I read and study what's there. So I have a good, I'm not no expert, but I have a good idea as to where the experts are and who the experts are. And then I weigh in and say, okay, here's what I think, I can help understanding the foundation of what it is. I just put up my hand. And because guess what? You realize that not a lot of people are putting up their hand, right? There's a lot of complainers. There's a lot of people who have a lot to say when things happen. I said, but where were you when we were asking for advice on this? Where were you when we had the open forum and we're inviting people to make comments on this? So so that's it. I mean, my email address is my first initial last name, CRecord, CRECKORD @gmail.com. Or I'm on most of the social media channels, Instagram, Facebook. While I'm on Twitter, I can't tell you now. I'm there though. I peep once every 2 weeks, but too much drama. So Chris Record, and find me.
And Chris is a real example. So he and it is important. We cannot stress anymore that we cannot just sit by the wayside, sit on our verandas and talk about the issues. As business people, we need to have a seat at the table. We need to take our seat at the table. I love George Byfield's comment. He says, we have an opportunity to transform the mindset of our people. Transformation of a mindset comes with involvement. You have to come out of the yard and get involved in the innovation, put your hand up, take your seat at the table, and the PSOJ is offering you a seat at the table. Chris Record, thank you again. We're going to have you back on our program. Chris Record has so many different things that he can share on, and today he was willing to join us.
Because I keep putting up my hand. Right? My coach told me the other day, Chris, it's time to learn to say no, right? So...
Thanks so much, Chris. So, viewers, today we talked about building mental strength, the mind-body connection, the anxiety of uncertainty, and managing stress in our daily lives. If you have not subscribed, and I mean, how much, Tyler, hear me say it, but it's going to be like a song in your head. Subscribe to sme@psoj.org. And remember, there's so many ways, effective ways that we can deal with the anxiety and the stress, the uncertainty in this COVID period. Practice mindfulness. Practice gratitude and focus on abundance. Be aware of bad habits that are keeping you back. Exercise 30 minutes a day, and this was stressed by the doctors on the program. Take a mental break. Seek spiritual and community support. Talk about the things that create the stress in order to let them go. Positivity, visualization. These things are not frou-frou. They are real. These are the things that will build our mental strength. Convert your vision into goals and your goals into specific activities. Notwithstanding what you're facing, it's time that if you are in a state where you're frozen and you're in almost a feeling of paralysis, it's time to get moving. there is a promise on the other side. Chris mentioned he started many businesses. You talk to many business persons, they've started businesses and they've failed and they've still come back again. We will emerge from COVID a stronger nation when we collaborate and do this together. And if you cannot manage, it is a way too much. Talking to a friend is not helping. You are not sleeping. You're not eating right. You are not coping. Seek professional help. This show is available right here on our PSOJ Facebook page. Please go back, take your time, go through the notes, subscribe to us at sme@psoj.org. Visit the PSOJ website to get information on membership. Don't think about it. Go ahead and become a member. George Byfield says, Rochelle, my hand is up. Let me know how I can give back. George, it is time. We're looking forward to hearing from you, and we're looking forward to getting more information from you on how you can give back. And remember, there's a PSOJ COVID fund. It has raised over $100 million so far, and providing very valuable care packages to our communities across Jamaica. It is a combined effort with various voluntary services groups, as well as the JDF. Please go to the PSOJ website and see how you can contribute. George, that is one of the ways you can contribute. So thank you all for joining us, and see you again next week, same time, for another episode of COVIDCASTJA.